Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report, a company update from Aztec Minerals, recapping the most recent news release from yesterday, January 13th. Drill results from the Tombstone property, 3 holes released from the Contention Main Zone. I will be posting the plan map that shows the red dots where these drill holes were located from this current release. I am chatting with Simon Dyakowski, President and CEO of Aztec Minerals. Company is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol AZT and on the OTCQB under the symbol AZZTF. Now, Simon, let's talk about these results. The headline number being hole 10 intersected a high-grade zone of little under 10 meters of close to 6 grams per ton gold equivalent within a broader zone of over 88 meters, averaging little over a gram per ton gold equivalent. A lot of these results do come at a shallow depth, and we can see hole 10 almost right in the middle of this Contention Main Zone. Simon, talk to us about these 3 holes, starting off mostly with hole 10, please.
Yeah, hey Corey, thanks very much for having me on the show to give this update. Timely update for us. We've just wrapped up the drill program, so we completed 17 drill holes, just over 3,000 meters, which was a 50% increase from our initially planned 2,000 meter program. And the drill holes have really focused on 3 main zones. They are the Contention Main Pit, which saw about 8 step-out drill holes. Then the Westside area, which saw 7 holes of first pass drilling. And then in the southern extension of the Contention Zone, we drilled 2 holes towards the end of the program. And what we're reporting in yesterday's news was the results of holes 6, 7, and 10. 6 and 7 were westerly step outs. 7 was a particularly large step out, approximately 65 meters of additional information to the west. And then hole 10 was in the pit, and we drilled that one vertically to get a bit of a test to depth. And we're able to expand the mineralized zone in the middle of the main portion of the contention pit with that hole, which returned a very healthy 88 meters, averaging just over 1 grams gold equivalent. And included with that was a wide high-grade zone of 9.2 meters of 5.93 grams per ton gold equivalent. So an excellent result. We're very pleased to see this zone continue to drill. Now we're getting some decent drill spacing into the model that we're going to obviously need once it comes time to quantifying the ounces that we may have here. And a good start for the year for reporting for us, and particularly with the step outs as well. And hole 7's a real standout. The grade didn't match hole 10. But if you look at the cross-section of 7, you can see that we've expanded the mineralized zone very substantially at depth and to the west. And to the west is where we're heading towards that west side target. And we've also on this cross-section traced on an interpretation of the gold-silver oxide mineralization envelope. And, not to get too technical here, but just want to point out how it does pinch and swell along the entire strike length of the contention zone and to the west. So I wouldn't read too much into zones that are less mineralized or better mineralized in terms of, cutoff of the mineralized zone. It's very much still growing in our view. We do not think that we've hit the limits of the mineralization here, even though some of the holes have been higher or lower grade. We still think it's early days. And we have only drilled to date 67 holes. Aztec has only drilled 67 holes on this project since we got going with the drill in mid-2020. So that's really quite a limited sample size. Every single hole except one has hit meaningful and significant mineralization. So it almost sounds weird repeating that, but it's been amazing how we haven't really missed on anything yet. Obviously we will eventually, but it's still very much in discovery mode, which is a good place to be as an exploration company.
Okay, let's talk about this hole 7 then, because it may get lost in that news release because you're right, it doesn't carry the kind of grade or that high grade portion that hole 10 does. But I'm looking at this cross section now. Is this the only hole that has been drilled out to the west from this contention pit, either by you or anybody else?
No, in fact, it's an additional hole that we've drilled. Holes that we reported late last year, 1, 2, 3, and 5 were along a similar fence, and they continue to push out to the west. So it's not the only hole, but it's been a very meaningful expansion program if you sum together the results of those, really of that fence, if you want to call it that. So holes 1, 2, 3, 7, and 6, which run from south to north. And then we have drilled some holes that we're awaiting final analysis from further west of that in more of a first pass target methodology. So not drilled along a fence, but really targeting specific structures. And, some of those look very promising from the visual indications of what we've seen in the chips. So really, it's been a very meaningful expansion. And what it's telling us is that we need to continue to drill in this area and likely from different dips and azimuths to really get an understanding of the structures in the north part of the contention zone there that are carrying this gold and silver mineralization.
Okay, so this does tie into this west side target too, which, look, we will have some future results from. But I guess, is it fair to say that this kind of confirms your theory that this mineralization is expanding to the west? So, as you said, this does warrant follow up work continuing to push over to the west.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will have a lot more to discuss on that in the release of some of the holes in the west side area. But we are seeing a lot of similarities, but we're also seeing some differences, which are interesting. And one difference that we are starting to potentially see is maybe more of a silver rich zone towards the west side, which was more of a silver dominant system in the west side fissure, whereas the contention dikes and the Empire Dike, the red vertical lines, or not vertical, but the red north-south lines on our plan map, those are a bit more gold rich. So there's some differences in zonation, but the general theme remains the same: gold, silver, oxide, expansion, drilling. And, harkening back to our research on this last year in 2023 and 24, we did see that this area was slated to go into open pit production in the early 80s. And we're now starting to understand preliminarily, why the operators of the mine at that time were planning to go out into that area. So the whole thing's getting bigger, which is what we want to see. And hopefully we see it get a lot bigger to the south as well. And towards the south could be pretty interesting because that actually sits right on top of the big AMT anomaly that hosts our CRD style deep target, which is still to be drilled, needs some deeper drilling. But the interesting thing is that we haven't seen sulfides yet really in any of these drill holes. So it's very deep oxidization here, which is, I think it bodes well for the potential for a bigger polymetallic discovery at depth.
So, Simon, within this plan map, we can see just how much of the drilling over the last couple of years has been focused in this contention main pit area. What sort of consistency have you seen in the overall drill results now, taking a step back and kind of analyzing them as a group?
Yeah, they're very consistent, and we can see that these structures, these red lines, they do appear to be running the length of the system, which is good. Obviously, where you've seen the bulk of the drilling is where you saw the bulk of the underground mining back in the day. But now we're starting to see some mineralization in some of the holes that have been drilled to the south that didn't have as extensive mining. So that's quite a bit more open now in our view. And even further beyond the southern extension, we've mapped and sampled some surface geology that definitely needs to be drill tested. So we're seeing a much bigger picture coming together. It's very complex geology. Obviously this plan map itself is quite complex. There's a number of intersecting structures that, are favorable for metal deposition. And when you have a system that's this complex, you really do need to have more drilling. Now, thankfully for us, it is all amenable to RC and shallow drilling, which is, obviously much less costly than if you have to diamond drill to depth. So it's very much open in the shallow zones here, and I think we can create some good, compelling shareholder value with continuing to drill shallow and build out the model and eventually build out some ounces.
Are you at a point in at least this contention main pit area to be able to release a resource or at least calculate one internally?
We really haven't seen the limits of the mineralization. I think if we had seen a few more, dusters, for lack of a better word, along the west side, if they weren't mineralized, then perhaps it would have been time to start to quantify. But because we haven't seen what we believe is the limits. We still think that our best bang for the buck with our investors' dollar is to continue to drill before getting a premature, or what could be a premature, estimation out to the market.
Okay, so now we have pretty much half of that 17-hole RC program that is now completed, released to the market. What's the schedule for the rest of the results? When will we see some results from this west side area or even this southern extension?
Over the coming weeks. I'm sorry to be so vague, but they're in various stages of us receiving them and getting them analyzed by our technical team. So, I would expect that we should have them probably by the end of January, but maybe we'll have some news into February from this as well. And then hopefully, subject to funding and results, we'll be drilling again within a couple of months thereafter.
Okay, Simon, I think that brings us up to speed here. I will post a link to that news release in the show notes. Again, I'll also post that plan map below this interview so that you all can see where the drilling has taken place and where the results from this news release are located. Please have a read over the news release. Send me any questions you have for Simon, and I will follow up with him when we get some more drill results released to the market. Simon, thanks for the update today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a great day.